It's lovely to have you here. I hope that you get most to everything you need in the way of information and support and motivation and strength and clarity to move forward with the struggles that surround you and not just the clutter, okay? If you're living in a hoarded environment, it is not just about the stuff. Today, I want to spend my talking time before we start to share at about the halfway mark, I think, with the question, what is the connection? Now, I've done a few different segments here, and I see how they're all connected. I want to make sure that you can see what the connection is between hoarding, no matter what level, all right, no matter minimal, level 1, major, severe, level 5 plus, no matter where you are on that continuum. If you meet the 3 criteria, or your situation meets the 3 criteria that we talked about way back in the beginning, there is what most people would describe as an excessive accumulation and a failure to resolve. They'll say resolve, not discard, proportionately. All right, that check and balance system that tells you, I'm getting a little out of control here. Oh, no, it's time preemptively to start working on the piles that are building, no matter how small, how innocently. The second criteria is some or all of the living spaces, and it's a continuum again, it's a process, have started to become impaired by things, and you can't use the spaces, some or all of the spaces, for their intended purpose. All right. The third criteria is that someone is either actively distressed, or if they're not actively distressed, if they knew the true condition of the environment that you're living in, they would have a legitimate cause to be concerned. That could be the fire department, could be children's services, could be services for the elderly, could be the bylaw, property standards if you live in a multi-unit dwelling. It could be your neighbor who doesn't know enough to take evasive action and get ready for a crisis. You don't have to be the one that causes the crisis, the flood, the fire, whatever. You don't have to be infestation if you live in an attached accommodation. You don't have to be the one. But if you have a hoarded environment, your environment is going to be more of an issue for yourself and everybody who lives in close proximity. So that's hoarding in a nutshell. The other thing, though, is how is it connected to procrastination? Now, we've done about 4 segments on procrastination. I think the light is starting to dawn for most people that actually procrastination has been given a bad rap. All right, it is not what most people think. It's not just about avoidance, you not doing something, you being lazy or unmotivated. That's not what it is. By now, you should be starting to understand, particularly if you have the book. All right, now this is not my book. This is Dr. Jane Burka and Dr. Lenora Ewan's book on procrastination. If you live with procrastination and it's an issue for you, get that book. All right. I don't know whether it's still in active print. It probably is. So you'll probably get it at Amazon. But you can also get it cheaper on ABC Books and Libris Books. All right. So get that book and read it. And get the 25th anniversary edition. All right. All right. That book is the Bible for me on procrastination. So procrastination is that thing, that behavior, that choice, albeit unconscious sometimes, that helps you save yourself from something that's even worse than the title procrastinator or the side effects of not getting around to things, not doing things, all right? It's sort of like a safe haven. It sounds contradictory, but honestly, it is the thing that saves you from something that for you is even worse, all right? I want to bring in today some work, if we can get to it, but if we can't get to it today, we will get to it the next time, on boundaries and limits. When I started to work with individuals who hoard, I started to notice that it wasn't just the stuff that was out of control. It was the lack of boundaries and limits that protected them, that supported them, that were healthy. And they were allowing themselves unwittingly, this was not intentional, all right? Jim, can you let the two people in who are in the waiting room? Unwittingly, they were allowing themselves to get into, remain, and get stuck, royally stuck, in a state of being overwhelmed, all right? Yeah. So I want to go through today all of the overs. So as I started to prepare this, there was kind of an irony that occurred to me, and I thought, you know, most people who are not experienced with hoarding, at a fairly low level of hoarding, when they see it or they encounter it, would say it's overfilled, all right? And then I started to see that over in so many other aspects, because the word I hear the most, and not one day when I'm working with clients goes by that someone doesn't tell me that they are supremely overwhelmed, all right? How do you get to overwhelmed? I don't think I've ever answered that question before. I've talked about the things that overwhelm us, but not how you get there. And so the light started to dawn for me that there was a piece that was missing, and I hope we can handle it today. And that is setting, knowing what are healthy boundaries and limits, learning how to set them for yourself. There is no template, there are some guidelines, but there's no formula for it. There's no, here are 10 boundaries and limits everybody should have. And how to protect themselves from being emptied by the tsunami of being overwhelmed, or that conversely, they've given away their focus, their energy, their motivation, their self-respect, their self-esteem gets lost as well in the piles. In those piles that you're looking at, folks, is your self-esteem, all right? It's overed in there. It's stuck in the over. So let's go through some of the other overs. Now, hopefully all of these overs aren't part of your life, but some of them will be. And I just want you to realize how many pitfalls there are along this path, that if I can help you set healthy boundaries and limits and help you to support yourself to maintain those very personal boundaries and limits for yourself, you can avoid those pitfalls. All right, they're sort of like potholes in the road. You don't have to drive into them just because they're there. They don't have to exact a price. You drive around them, or you walk around them through your healthy boundaries and limits. So if you've got some paper handy, all right, I want you just to put the number of ticks. So hoarding is a state of being overed something, all right? Overwhelmed for sure. Yeah, that I'm sure most of you are ticking that one. Overfilled lives, not just by accumulations, but whether those accumulations are valued collections, undone tasks that you are overfilled with, or never started tasks that you are overwhelmed with. over-interrupted in mid-task. Many people tell me that they start out to sort and clean and discard or decide, resolve, and they end up being distracted by the various places that they discover along the way to start, finish. So over-interrupted mid-task. If you're over-interrupted mid-task, this is not a formula, but one of the things I'd like you to start looking a little deeper at, because any of these can be a continuum. You don't have to be 100% attention deficit disorder. You don't have to be 100%. You don't even have to be classically able to be diagnosed as that. If you're living with any behaviors, any vulnerabilities for attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? Go on Google, go on the Cleveland Clinic, go on the Mayo Clinic, look for and just see whether you have any vulnerabilities. Distractibility is a huge indicator that there might be a few of those that have gone unnoticed that are getting in your way. All right, so over-interrupted mid-tasks or leftover. You start it, but you leave it. Unresolved pieces of every one of our day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month or year-to-year tasks. So we start something, we get pooped out maybe, or maybe we have to move on to something else. Realistically, you can't spend your whole day doing one thing, and then we never get back to it. All right, we don't forget about it, we just don't get back to it. We start whatever the burning priority is the next day. The other thing we can be overed by is overlooked decisions to resolve problems. So we get part of the way along, we get things into our piles. Okay, these are all my dishes, these are all my linens, these are all my glasses, these are all my clothes, these are all and we don't get back to it to resolve. So which ones are staying and which ones, using some method, are leaving. So we also overlook our needs. How many times have we said that? Our desires, our obligations to ourselves, and to others as well. Okay, we do have obligations sometimes that we do overlook, like enforcement regulations, right? Like putting our remaining energy into making our vision for our life actualized. We overlook that. We get so focused on the tasks. It's like work, but we have no sustainable main plan. We don't know what the target looks like, or if we ever did, we forget it because we get distracted by the tasks in front of us. It could be that we overlook decisions having to do with our immediate family. Maybe that's where we give all of our energy and our focus. Our extended family, no man is an island. Our decisions that resolve our needs, desires, and obligations to friends, or our boss, or our colleagues, or our neighbors. Who is getting the vitality and focus, the proportion of it that you need and you deserve to spend on yourself? Where is it going? Do you end up at the end of the day, week, month, year, with little to show for your own needs? If you're on this podcast, you have piles that are bugging you, that are costing you something. Where is that energy going? How well have you set those 3 goals that I outlined in Conquer the Clutter? All right. You don't have time to go over those. When Jim gets the podcast posted again, start going over and find that podcast. All right. Or get the book and read the book. Some people get overwhelmed by being over fearful. We're not talking, everybody is fearful at some point in some way. It's not the fear that's the problem. Sometimes fear is entirely appropriate, all right, necessary. We get over fearful though. We get over fearful about things like making the wrong decision, okay? If we make the wrong decision, there's this looming kind of, hard to describe what it is, but it's like an aura. It's like a pressure, all right, that something dark will happen, will result to us. And it slows us down enough that that fear, then we're responding to the fear, not the plan. Maybe it could be a fear that we will regret a decision, like for the rest of our life as intensely as we first felt it. We will experience the regret and it will never go away, right? That's not going to happen. Longing, that longing for the thing, I wish, is in a perfect world, most of us would want to keep a good deal of what we have acquired, all right? Maybe we're over fearful of self-criticism. Are you your own worst critic? How hard are you on yourself? Is that reasonable? Where did you learn to do that? Whose voice from the committee first said those messages to you? And why have you voiced over them and now they're now in your own voice? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? Maybe we're worried about judgment from others. Are there other people who would be critical of us, who have perfectionistic standards? And we kind of are always looking sideways for the critic. Do you have a critic in your life, all right, who wouldn't be above taking advantage of the fact that some of the best things that have been created as a result of a mistake that was made, okay? Feeling over vulnerable to making a mistake and the wrong decision in a vague but powerfully internal way, all right? What is that vague sense? Where is that coming from? And I can assure you that if you start looking at what your needs are, remember we've talked about your A-list needs. Can't live without them. They are who you are. You need them practically every exchange, every moment of every day. Your B-list needs. The B-list needs are those ones that you need a good deal of. You don't need them every moment, every day, every exchange, in every moment of every relationship, but you need them most of the time. They are solidly in the forefront, all right? And the C-list needs, those are the icing on the cake. If once in a while they happened, it would be just the perfect day. Do you even know what those are? Have you, since I've been talking about this, given yourself the right to set the time with no distraction to figure out what your needs are? And if not, why not? That's the foundation for your plan. Maybe you are a risk manager. Maybe that's just inherent in your nature, or you've learned that, or maybe you are that kind of person and that's what you did for a living, and so now you've gotten really proficient at being overcautious. Any risk is too high a risk, and this overcautious in pursuit of the right answer, because we all know there is only one right answer, correct? there are probably 6 equally good answers that would work just as well if we gave ourselves the right to take a deep breath and think outside the box based on what we need. All right? Or the ideal outcome. We imagine the outcome. And anything short of that, any risk, any decision short of what will guarantee that, either you decide against it or you kind of go into a holding pattern until you find the right answer. Universally, and this ideal outcome has to happen universally every single time. It's not worth starting and doing something if it's not going to be done perfectly or right, all right? Despite the difference. Now, when we apply this to every decision that we make, all right, not all things we're deciding about in those piles have equal importance or value to us based on our needs and our relationship to them. All right? And even if they have high value and high importance, they won't all have the same permanent impact on your life. That initial fear, that initial caution, all right, the alarm bell, the, oh, what if? What normally happens, people, is that sometimes you do feel it intensely. When I gave that dining room set away, I felt it intensely, all right? But I gave myself another image, not my family around the table for 45 years, not all the people who are no longer with me as part of that experience around the table. I'm now picturing that family who thought that they had died and gone to heaven. All right, when they saw that dining room suite come off the truck at the Salvation Army, right? I'm picturing them having their best and worst moments around that dining room table. I'm picturing that dining room table, and you do this with your things too. It works. All right, you are only the curator of the best things you have. You don't actually own them. All right, and they don't own you for sure. All right, you can pass it on, and that item has a lifespan of its own. Okay, sometimes it's more a case of being overactive and distracted mid or before the task can be completed. Do you have so much going on? Oh, I have a funny story to tell you about so much going on, all right, and getting distracted. It can happen to anybody, all right, that you don't finish the task. Slight diversion. Yesterday, I went over to have some pants shortened at Stitch It at Bayshore. And I was in a hurry. I'm rushing. I've got to get ready for this. I've got to get ready for the Psychology Today blog. I've got to get ready for clients. I've got to make sure everybody's got their appointments and that they're confirmed and we're solid. And it's not open when I get there. So I sit on the bench outside with my mask on, of course. And I don't know how I did this. I still don't know how I did this. I think I was trying to put my big thing of cache of keys in my purse, and I didn't notice that it dropped somewhere. So after I finish at Stitch It, I'm opening my purse to get my keys to head back because I'm in a rush. I got to get back to finish the blog and to finish my notes for you folks today. And no keys. Oh, no keys. I'm sure they're in the bag that I brought the clothes in. No, they're not. No, they're not. I walk back and forth the path, embarrassed. I have to call home for somebody to come and bring me another set of keys. And then I think, I wonder if they have a lost and found or a customer service. So I call, and some kind person found the keys. And I was only gone maybe 30 minutes, but they were kind enough to make it a priority to finish the task. I am forever grateful. And they took them to security and I got my keys back. It can happen to anybody when we feel overactive and we get distracted. All right? There's nothing wrong with you. This is the human condition. But it becomes a problem when you let the human condition rule your life. It isn't just an isolated incident. And it's a lesson to you when it happens. Slow down and enjoy life and do everything you need to do in its true proportion, including joy, fun, and play, doing something that reminds you that you are a growing, learning, developing human being, and also those thankless tasks that we all have to do. Okay? Some people feel over-responsible, all right? Over-responsible for actioning outcomes. So this can be, I see this a lot with people who are up to their ears in clutter and they need to be exacting recyclers. First, I'm not saying this is right, but first save yourself, all right? When the plane's going down, you put your mask on yourself first. That's the only way you can be a help to the universe perpetually, all right? Or they worry, they're worriers, all right? And they worry about other people and other situations in their life, despite the fact that you can't guarantee that the desired outcome, no matter how much you worry about it, all right, you have the power to change or put into effect. Right? Sometimes people get overstimulated, okay, mentally by the variables. Okay, no, don't have enough information. What about this variable? And this could happen. Well, what about this? And this is a possibility. They get not just the variables to be considered in the decision, but also crafters, the engineer's brain, opportunities and possibilities that items represent that trigger your brain and put you into overstimulated overdrive. All right? I know, you're going down the street and you see somebody put something out by the side. That's too good. That is an opportunity. That is too good to go out. And I see it, so I'm going to take it home and I'm going to make that opportunity happen with this thing. But that thing or anything like it was never on the radar. Never on the radar, all right? Is it possible that a better solution would be acknowledge that great things do get put out, but every opportunity isn't yours. And you don't have the responsibility for saving it. Maybe that's somebody else's opportunity if you leave it, all right? I like to encourage the people I work with to have one project on the go and the material, the product to make it happen, and one in the wings that you can start gathering product for. All right. And as this one finishes, this one comes in, and if you're a project person, the next project gets put in the wings. But not every project. And part of what I have learned, I pass it on to you for whatever use you can make of it. I did not learn this lesson easily, all right? I am somewhat of a stubborn Irish woman who likes to have a plan, all right? However, I had to learn, sometimes with humor, that the universe provides what you need, when you need it, in the order you need it, if your radar is on and you're awake and listening, all right? So there are very, very, very few things, maybe your partner in life, who knows, right, that are irreplaceable, that won't come again, or if you don't take this opportunity, something equal or better will be available when you're ready for it. Right? Some people have a high need for control. Okay? And the failure to realize and accept that we very, very rarely have the ability to control people, we shouldn't try, or situations, right? Okay, we can influence the outcome, but we can't control it. And so that high need for control is a waste of energy. What does it represent? It probably represents some definition of good enough, the right way, perfectly, or my way. All right? And the point is that you can only influence a situation. You rarely can control it. All right? The next over I want to talk to you about are those people who are overextended, right? They have a calendar that is ripe, and all of their time, their energy, and their focus, their desire to undertake, enjoy, finish projects that would give them a sense of who they are and what they enjoy while using their skills and ability never happens. Okay? Or happens in little segments that never get finished because the person overextends themselves. Is anybody starting to see the connection with boundaries and limits? All right. The next over that occurred to me is overstressed. Right? Not working from your own needs. When something's not working, stop forcing it. Stop giving up. Put yourself on pause and ask yourself one question. What do I need out of this? And I can be a family group. Okay, if you represent a family group with respect to this situation, it can be that. Sometimes it's just you, all right? And when you get overstressed because of all these other overs, the weight, does anybody feel the weight of those on your shoulder? How many ticks do you have right now? That sense of being overstressed ends up with overwhelmed, over defeated, over anxious, over confused about where to even start. How many people have had that sense of, as much as I'd like to do it, I don't even know where to start? All right. And so the loop that we've created, and here's the thing, creating it is one thing, but then we actively participate in it. All those overs that I talked about, they can happen to you. But when you back up and you set boundaries and limits, healthy boundaries and limits that respect who you are, what you need, what you believe, and what you stand for, and how much energy you have. How much do you have to give extra after your own care and the care of the people that you love the most? All right? That loop, okay, gets created. And the choices that we regularly make, it's not that one time when you make a choice that turns out to be maybe not the best choice. All right? It's the choices we regularly make. Come full circle, and we end up treading water, all right, in something that I want to call the soup we create by being overwhelmed by all these any of these overs, and then as represented, the byproduct, the end result of any one of those overs, folks, are the piles that you're looking at that are bugging you enough that you're here with me. Stop treading water in the soup. So what do? Okay? I want you to imagine this hole that you're in. All right? At the far end, you can see how dark, how overwhelmed, how really stuck it feels. All right? I want you to just close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that this is a hole. And at the far end of this hole, like a trench, okay? This hole that was created by your hoarding behaviors and tendencies, I want you to see a handrail. And I want you to see steps. Steps up and out of the hole. That handrail, as you get closer to it, I want you to hold on to it, because it's the handrail that will guide you to safety and effectively, all right, get yourself out of the hole. That handrail are your needs and your personal experience and the meaning that that personal experience has for you. That's your handrail. Has it occurred to you at this point that you already have the answer? It's in you. You are not looking for something outside yourself. You already have needs. Have you done the work? Leave the piles for a bit. Have you done the work to figure out what you need? A, B, C needs, all right? And even beyond that, to imagine what you desire. What's all this work and fuss and furor about? And frustration and sense of being overwhelmed? What is all this in aid of? Where are you headed? What is it you want at the end of it? That's your handrail, folks. That's worth doing some work every day, every single day. The next time you bump your head on something or you feel thwarted in some way, stop. Put yourself on pause. Deep breath. Right now, what do I need? What do I need as a priority? That's my A-list need. Okay. What do I need beyond that? And then further away, what do I need, want, or desire? What does it look like? You can't hit a target if you don't know what it looks like. And your target will be very different from every other person who's here today. Okay? I want you to listen to that. And more importantly, I want you to trust it. You're not going to lie to yourself. All right? Not when you're having that kind of encounter with yourself. Can you now see how the state of however your piles and pathways are right now in this, to some degree, hoarded environment has been created in the many ways you and your pathway out are in a state of overness? Can you also forgive yourself? Can you understand, accept, and forgive yourself? Stop dissing yourself. That procrastination is not a bad habit. It can become a friend and an ally, saving you from hopelessness. by assigning meanings like. What are they? We went through them in fear of success, fear of failure, fear of control, fear of losing or establishing autonomy. Okay. Let's do a little review. Get your pen out again and let's start ticking. Okay, we may run over today a little, okay? Are you being derailed by assigning meanings like, I'm only as good and I'm only as worthy as my last product. That last product I produced. Even if it's just a task, even if it's just doing the dishes, even if it's just wiping the counter, even if it's just finishing that pile, all right? And it is the result of the piles, the things that pile up that you put down. Okay? You're only as worthy as as how well you did on your last task and product. No, you're worthy anyway. You're more important than the end product of what you create. That's a function of where you are right now, not who you are right now. Okay, so look at things like putting things down at the door and not getting back to them. How frenzied, how tired, how overtaxed are you by the time you come in that door? What can you and should you do about that? First, self-care first, put your mask on first. All right? Are you derailed by assigning meanings like, there's no point in starting if I'm not going to be able to do it right, and I don't have the tasks, I don't have the time, I don't have the motivation, and I don't have the energy. Or maybe it's, I really want to do it alone, right? Because I want it done my way. Problem is, it's not getting done. Which is more important? A number of tasks left undone because they're not done your way, or compromising, getting the tasks done, and then fine-tune the plan and the vision your way. This is too hard. This should be easier. I must be doing something wrong. It shouldn't be this hard. All right, so I give up, or I put it down. I'll come back to it later. There's a time and a place for that, but when that's habitual, it's not a good, you really want to listen to yourself, all right? I probably won't succeed, so there's no point in really starting. If I succeed at this, someone, including myself, will expect me to do even more and better the next time. How do I top this? I don't deserve success. I feel guilty. I feel flawed. I feel broken. I feel unworthy. I don't deserve success. I've never been lucky. It's just not in the cards for me. All right? I'm afraid that once I start, my perfectionistic standards will kick in and I'll never be satisfied, or somebody else will never be satisfied. I'm better to just avoid it. Rules are made to be broken. All right? They're just suggestions. Growing up, I was expected to do this. I'm living on my own now, and I'll please myself. I don't have to please or account to anybody. All right. Well, that's true. But even the best idea out of proportion is no longer a good idea. How is that working for you? Your autonomy is not demonstrated by creating a safety and a health hazard for yourself, by tripping over something. All right? This other thing has just become a higher priority. I'm working on this, but oh, this is a higher priority. Yeah, that can happen, but not repeatedly. If it's happening repeatedly, it has a different meaning. If these things are happening to you, I want to suggest this. Gather the people and only the things that fill those needs. A-list, B-list, C-list needs. And respect the meaning that your personal experience has formulated out of those experiences, out of the success and failure getting your needs met. Okay? Gather the people and only the things that support you for who you are today, moving forward, and stop looking back. You're not going that way. You can't make room and time for the future, your future. And if you're breathing right now, you have a future. You can't make time, space, or energy or space for it. You can't if you're dragging so much of the past with you. Setting boundaries is essential if we want to be both physically and emotionally healthy. I think what I'm going to do here, I'll finish with this one, and then next time we'll do the boundaries and limits. Creating healthy boundaries and limits creates the foundation. It is the foundation to develop and be our worthy self. Creating healthy boundaries also helps us to enforce, set limits that protect our self-respect, our self-esteem, and participate in and enjoy relationships that are healthy, allows us to participate in them. Okay? Unhealthy boundaries cause emotional pain, and they can lead to dependency, depression, anxiety, and even stress-induced illness. Okay. I want to show you some books, and then we're going to open the chat room. I see that there are 2 questions in there. Part of setting healthy boundaries and limits is, yes, identifying them yourself, knowing them, and committing to them, and then experimenting in real life with them. But it's learning how to communicate that to in a way that you're comfortable with, that is congruent with who you are, what type of person you are, to others. So assertive communication. A lot of the people, this is for women. It was designed for women. Can you see it? It's called Self-Assertion for Women, the classic guide that has helped thousands of women take charge of their lives, by Pamela E. Butler, B-U-T-L-E-R, PhD. She's also the author of Talking to Yourself. I like her already. Sometimes that's the only way to get consensus, is to run it by yourself first. Do that all the time. So I suggest this book for anyone who wants to have good ways of expressing themselves assertively, for learning where that assertive line is and aggressive line is, all right? Because when you start to assert and describe and verbalize your needs and where your boundaries and limits are, it can feel awkward and kind of contrived in the beginning, uncomfortable, okay? This book is a good way to help you, all right? A little further on, I'd like to kind of open the door. We're not going to go into this to any great degree, but for anybody who ticked enough boxes, the next book I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is Codependent. Now what? All right? It's not you, it's your programming. All right? You were not born codependent. You were made and tailored and burnished into that lovely codependent person with codependent tendencies. How's it working for you? So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right, it's not all or nothing. In what ways might you be in certain circumstances codependent that's not in your best interest or not in the relationship's best interest either? This book was written by Lisa, Lisa, Romano, Romano. One last book for those people who ticked a lot of boxes, okay, who procrastinate or have a profound sense of overwhelmed. Conquer the clutter, obviously, but also Road Back to Me, again, by Lisa A. Romano. All right? The other thing, Jim, can we put up the resource today that maybe what we could do too is post it as an attachment to the podcast, or we could put it in resources maybe in our resources tab on the website?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, okay. So there's 20 questions. It's a 20-question self-assessment for healthy boundaries. And this is by Dr. Jane, she's a PhD, Bolton, Bolton. And she is attached to psychotherapy and life coaching. All right, she's a psychotherapist and a life coach. And she's put together a really good little quiz here, 20-question quiz. All right. All right. So let's open up the chat room and see what we have. All right.
So there was that one question right at the beginning that you said you wanted to come back to.
Okay. I'm going to also read the second one. I read a hoarding pamphlet that hoarders have an affinity slash addiction. Hoarding is not an addiction, okay? And there to plastic, okay? I'm sorry, I'm jumbling here. Let me read it first, okay? I read a hoarding pamphlet that hoarders have an affinity slash addiction with plastic, period. I am surrounded by 65 plastic storage bins, excessive plastic stack trays. They do seem to, don't they? Well, what are you trying to store? If you're doing this, I'm not going to say your name. If you're doing this, if you are surrounded by that, what was your intent? Okay, what was your intent? Are those plastic bins full? All right. Was that your best way to, and are they opaque or are they clear? What was your goal? Don't listen to the pamphlet. Okay, there are so many more things. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's not just plastic. All right, and hoarding is not an addiction. It mimics in some way. It is not an addiction. So don't worry about that. And I want you to go back. When you come back next week, I want to have a question from you. You know who you are. I want you to ask yourself, what was I trying to achieve? What was my hope, my goal, my plan? If you have 65 plastic totes surrounding you right now, you had a plan. What was it? And how has that plan been actioned? All right. How have you put that plan into action? Are you stuck? Was it enough? Is the discomfort relieved by the fact that those 65 totes are full and they're stacked and it's neat and tidy? You're not impaired by piles that you're stepping on and stepping over. Where is the threshold for discomfort for you? Have you achieved that threshold? And that's why they're still there, full. Did you have a huge job sorting and discarding and donating and selling, and however you resolved the things if those 65 totes are empty and they're stacked? And if you are, don't, for heaven's sakes, before you start looking at this as something dysfunctional, I want you to celebrate if you emptied 65 totes, all right? Because you've taken your future back from your past, all right? That's a good thing. So I want another question from you next week about what your plan, what your goal, what your needs were at the time that you got those 65 totes, all right? And yes, would everyone who is here today who has ever had financial difficulties or not enough money to pay for the help that they needed, and who has found a way or been offered ways to help with the physical work, because many people, not everyone, but many people have a real difficulty with the physical part, all right? And staying on it. It takes dogged determination and perseverance to do that. But sometimes when the physical, your body just won't cooperate physically, and you need the help, but you don't have the money to get the help or to purchase services. If you've ever had a solution to that has worked, especially one that you wouldn't have believed was possible, that was right there in front of you, would you send me emails this week to elaine.birchall@hoarding.ca and just briefly, okay, because there are quite a number of you here today, tell me what the problem was, what the help that came was, and how it worked. And next week, we have somebody who is struggling with the physical part of the work, and financially it's just not a viable option and they're under pressure. They're under pressure. Okay, one new message. Okay, let's look at this. You're very, very welcome, Joan. She says, thanks for asking the question to everyone. And somebody else, Leanne, I would be interested in hearing as well. All right, it's true. It's true. It's a very common problem, a very, very common problem, the lack of services. So I will see you same station, same Zoom meeting room next week. We're going to do boundaries and limits. Okay, is there somebody else here? I want to share, I'm asked, oh, wait a minute. I wanted to share, good for you. I'm making good headway, don't go too fast, with my stuff, and you all have been a great inspiration. Thank you, thank you. Yes, it's a great question. Good idea to crowdsource as an answer. Thank you, crowdsource, that's a great word. Thank you, Elaine. You are very, very welcome. You're very welcome. You're going to make me cry. Okay, I'll see you next week. Boundaries and limits. Okay, and anytime you hear yourself saying, oh, I can't make it. It's not about hoarding this week. It is about the foundation blocks to hoarding. Aww. Oh my goodness, I'm going to cry. Okay, everybody, before you make me cry, I will see you next week, and I'm looking for those emails, all right? Take care. Have a great week. Make it a great week, despite what happens, as great as it can be.